Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee meeting, today the 5th of January 2023 at 7 p.m. This is a special Performance and Finance Scrutiny Committee meeting for a call-in. The rules have been set out on page 3 of the agenda. I hope all of you have read.
Can we start with apologies?
Yeah, come. So it has been set up. Please read it. I will address it later on. Apologies for absence.
Thank you. We've had apologies from Councillor Rise, Councillor Wheeler, Councillor Whitcroft and Councillor Ratteram. Councillor Bates is substituting for Councillor Wheeler, Councillor Tapper is substituting for Councillor Rise, and Councillor Lewis is substituting for Councillor Ratteram. Councillor Whitcroft and Wheeler are joining us online.
Thank you very much. I should have started by wishing everyone a Happy New Year. Happy New Year to everyone. Well, two paragraphs later. Declaration of interest. Oh, Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. Just to make it clear that I'm the Council's representative on the bid, and obviously that's the main subject tonight, so there's no pecuniary interest, but that's obviously, I'm a director of the bid.
Thank you for that. Any other interests? Nope. Thank you. Right. Call-in meeting procedure, pages 3 to 4, it says, but it's 3. Agenda item 3. I hope everyone's read this. Democratic Services, Catherine Simpson will stop you at the appropriate time. So there could be some flexibility, but I sincerely hope you don't take more than what you need to. I'm sure we would all want to try and keep it as short as possible and get out of here. Thank you. Agenda item 4. And who is presenting this? I presume it's Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. As many of you will remember, at the August Executive, we agreed to resolve grant fund contributions to Collectively Camberley. It also asked the bid to explore opportunities for further partnership work, including provision for extra financial support where it was considered this would deliver real benefits for local residents and the economy. For the November Executive, we presented a paper which listed a number of events which the bid believed would meet this criteria. The total approval requested was for $55,000 for a one-off grant to be awarded in order to contribute towards the delivery of the events to support economic prosperity of the town centre. Also, for £5,000 to be added to the current capital programme to provide a capital grant to Collectively Camberley. The Executive was asked to resolve the authority to be delegated to the Strategic Director Environment and Community in consultation with Economic Development and Transformation Portfolio Holder to award the grant, subject to revision of a costed business case. I know that one of the reasons for the call in the paper was that there was no rationale or business plan given as to why these specific initiatives or events would result in any benefit to the Council or the Camberley Town Centre or the value of such benefits. It was thought that asking the bid to pull together full business plans for each event originally listed before actually knowing that the funding would be supported was not a good use of their time, which is why, as agreed in the original paper, the portfolio holder and Strategic Director of Environment and Community would need to see a business case before agreeing to spend any of the monies. As far as a rationale as to why these events were seen to be good initiative, we were led to by the experts on this who are the bid. They have been running successful events for many years and have been in conversations with other bids in the locale as to what other types of events work. It is fair to say that a lot of the members of the bid believe that the events that are run are great for the town and for their businesses. I've pulled out some of their comments which are freely available on the recent bid document. Love from Betty. The Love Camberley team, Jodie and Kyle, are a real asset to the businesses of Camberley. Opening a bricks and mortar store is a scary step, especially in hard high street trading times, so their efficient, professional, welcoming support has been invaluable. Through Love Camberley, our businesses have been given many opportunities to promote and raise our local profile. I'm excited to see what else the team have in store for Camberley going forward. Craft Coop. I remember how amazed I was to discover that the Collectively Camberley team consisted of only 2 full-time staff. The work they do is really impressive and covers a huge range of events, business workshops and social media campaigns. One of the things that really worked well for us was the video with Santa, which allowed us to explain what made a difference from our regular high street shops and why it is important to shop local. I have many more, but as I'm limited to 8 minutes, I didn't want to read them all out. Whilst I can't guarantee to you those people coming in will spend money, what I can guarantee is if they weren't in town, they wouldn't be spending it here. I know from speaking with the managers of a couple of the restaurants that during the recent car show and Christmas switch on, they had the busiest days in their history. This is borne out from the takings on those days. I know there were a number of social media posts and comments after the last meeting picking up on things like life-sized inflatable gorillas and pub crawls. So I wanted to address some of those points also. It is unfortunate that in the links that were supplied in the paperwork, it took you straight to an inflatable gorilla. As many of you will have seen previously in town, there have been trails to find the bunnies at Easter and most recently reindeers at Christmas. These are the sort of things that were in mind for this item. These have been proved very popular in the past and this suggestion was following on from that. I note that when these trails have been run in the past, there are generally 500 plus completed entries, with a further 100 plus which are not fully completed but still handed in. One of the other suggestions was a beach party scenario. This is something that has gone down, has been done in Camberley a few years ago. As many will have noted when, from recent posts on social media, the turnout in town for that event was another success. With lots of families turning up, both these types of events are ones that bring the families into town and there is no cost involved to those taking part. On the subject of Christmas Con, one area we know that needs to be addressed is to concentrate on the nighttime economy. Before I go on further, I want to clarify to those of you who don't understand the term con. It comes from the term convention. I myself have been to Comic-Con a number of times, and although I am not someone who goes in costume, I definitely am in the minority. The atmosphere at such events has to be seen to be believed, and bringing the spirit of such an event to Camberley is a great idea. Whilst there was mention of a free shot or drink in the paper, this is not the aspect that would be funded by this money. This would be used to support the event with promotion, publicising, etc. I appreciate the way this was put in the original paper was probably not the best, and I take responsibility for that, but the concept of helping the nighttime economy in town is a sound one. On the night of the executive, I did highlight this and the fact that another idea would be to support local bands by doing a similar event in relevant establishments. At this point, I wanted to come back to one of the initial comments I made and one that is main points to call in. The executive was asked to resolve that the authority be delegated to Strategic Director Environment and Community in consultation with Economic Development and Transformation Portfolio Holder to award the grant, subject provision of costed business case. So to reiterate, none of this money is going to be spent without a costed business case for each item, and also making sure all aspects are discussed with all relevant partners. The last point I want to make is that I totally understand that at this difficult time, residents are struggling with the current cost of living and inflation. The Council is trying to support those residents as best they can with great initiatives like the Household Support Scheme, Warm Hubs and many more such initiatives. But we also need to try and support the local businesses where we can. The bid has a proven track record with running events. You only have to look at the successes of this year, the car show and the Christmas light switch on. By adding more to the calendar of events, hopefully this would help residents feel that Camberley is a great destination. Finally, I would like to thank you for listening and your time this evening, and I will happily answer any questions and queries that come up during the discussions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Garrett. It is the report author or the senior manager who will make comments provided for the technical information relating to the decision. They will speak for up to 5 minutes. Anyone volunteering to do that?
Thank you, Chair. I believe that Councillor Garrett put it quite eloquently. The only thing that I'd really want to reiterate over and above is essentially the same comment, I'd imagine. It's around the costed business case and the fact that I know that Mr. Watson wouldn't even contemplate providing money to the bid unless it was on the basis of a very detailed business case that demonstrated the broader benefit to the businesses within the town centre.
Thank you very much. If there are no further comments, Mr. Watson, would you like to say anything about it? I mean, you got another, I guess, couple of minutes to say something.
Thank you. Yes, again, backing up what's been said by Councillor Garrett and by Mr. Stevens, there's a question about why support the bid. The bid runs events in Camberley Town Centre. It's well known and well publicised that the council actually owns most of Camberley Town Centre. And therefore, by what we're doing with supporting the bid and putting events on, it does help the Camberley Town Centre thrive in terms of bringing in more footfall, and that footfall allows us to attract businesses into the town centre by either renewing their leases with the council or bringing in new businesses to take up leases. One of the first things they look at is it a thriving town centre? And these events that get put on by the bid, who are the best people to do it, as has been said on many occasions, because we get a element of multiplier or gearing for our money that we give to the bid, added to their money to make this events go further and better. So it does that. And there's talk about, is it about the businesses? It is about the businesses, but it's also about the residents. The residents of Camberley and the borough come into Camberley to shop and provide things. All the people who work, the majority of people who work within the town centre are probably residents of the borough. It provides that employment. And as I said before, the issue around the gearing and the multiplier and using an organisation that allows us to do these things rather than council officers is where we go to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. Now we go to the calling councillors. I would calling councillor Mr. Bates, Councillor Bates, rather.
Thank you, Chairman. And just as I indicated before the meeting and with your informal agreement, because there are three councillors who've called this in, and we're all of three different political persuasions, what I've agreed to do, and my time hasn't started because it's more explanatory, is that I will speak for a couple of minutes less in order to allow Councillor Tapper, who's the third councillor, the additional time. So there won't be additional time over and above, but just to allow the third councillor to speak if they so wish. So the reason why I've called this in is, frankly, that we have responsibility on how to spend public money, and that's councillors have that responsibility. We are the guardians of the public purse, and our job is to act wisely, especially when many of our residents are really struggling at the moment. And we all know that this council has many significant financial challenges for various reasons that we're all going to argue about over the next few months. But today is about the allocation of £55,000. I have not called in, and I don't believe my colleagues have either, the £5,000 for capital items, because I think that that was justified at the time and remains so. There is some common ground with what has been outlined here. We all agree that there have been excellent events in the town, and we all agree that the bid is very good. We've been to the car show, we've been to the Christmas lights and other things. But that isn't actually the issue here, because those were not the justifications that were put forward at that meeting, and they're still not being put forward tonight. We all want a town centre that works, and we want to encourage high-quality businesses and high-value individuals to come here for the benefit of all of us, to benefit of our economy and the council as a whole. And based on the report that was given at that meeting, much of which we now hear was incorrect or not accurately reflected in terms of what was meant, it wasn't justified. Let's take the three proposals in turn. The first is for a £5,000 Christmas con, which, if you look at page 22, I'm afraid the pub crawl does accurately reflect what it is, although we've heard justification now that it should be considered something else. We can't use public money in this way. This is contrary to numerous initiatives that the council already operate, involving healthy living and partnership working with the police. There's no evidence there was any discussion with the police, at least not in the report. And they're trying to address antisocial behaviour in the town. And this appears, on the face of it, to be not encouraging it, that's wrong, but there would be elements which could go into that if it was not appropriately stewarded and all the rest of that. Now, I'm all for celebrating in the town. I do it myself, but there's no evidence that this has been requested or necessary, and Christmas business for pubs in itself is less of a problem than the rest of the year. So I'm afraid I just cannot see any reason whatsoever we can justify £5,000 of public money to be spent in this way. The footfall argument is actually, I'm afraid to say, misguided. The issue is not actually how many people are in the town centre, it's what they then go on to do. Does that money get spent into the town centre? And it's all very well for groups such as McDonald's, which I know may have had a record day, to benefit. But actually, we want our independents, we want other businesses who are not here to say Camberley is the place to come to. And is frankly, a pub crawl, I'm going to carry on calling it because that's what I believe it is that the way to justify these high-value businesses to come into our area? And I'm afraid I simply don't believe that it is. In terms of the animal statues, again, we've heard that that is perhaps slightly different to how it was represented at the time. But again, if I'm a high-value business or business person trying to think about where am I going to invest, if I see a large cow or a large gorilla, am I going to think that's the place I want to be? And I simply, again, don't think that that is the case. Now, we've talked about reindeers and things like that, but that's an entirely separate issue in terms of shop windows and things of that nature. We're not talking about the large statues, the oversized, I want to make sure I accurately record it, life-size models. That is what is in the report that was given, and that is what the justification was for the decision that was made. And I just cannot see how that is, at least on the paperwork available, how that can be justified. In terms of the beach party, that could potentially be justified if the figures stack up. I don't personally consider it to be a priority, but it could possibly be if a business case was made. I do take the view the business case has to be done to councillors. It's not one that should be given to officers afterwards. We are the ones who decide public money. Officers look at their justification and to ensure compliance, but we are the ones whose money, on behalf of the public, it is. We can't pass that off to officers to then do that, I'm afraid, much as I value the work that they do. My perspective is that I'm not against Camberley, collectively Camberley, getting extra funds above their allocation, but we have to set some principles around that, and I've outlined them in my call-in form as to what they are. I believe they're sensible, uncontroversial principles which are listed on page 10. So my view is that I think this was a mistake on this occasion by the executive. It was made in good faith, I accept that, but hopefully with the passage of time there may be a reflection, as there appears to be already, that this is not necessarily the best way forward, and that therefore the best way would be to reflect carefully and only come forward with a properly business case that is before us as councillors that we can agree. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Councillor Wheeler, I know you are on screen. You want to use up your less than 8 minutes?
I am going to use up less than 8 minutes as well. I'm hoping to stick to 5. You're welcome to prompt me if I go over, so that essentially all of us have a similar amount of time. I think listing this evening, we are in danger of rewriting history. The decision on the call-in was based on the information that was presented to the executive, and the executive made a decision based on the information that was before them. The fact that we're now hearing that things were poorly worded and that there was more information behind it by inference isn't helpful, and maybe that's a lesson that we can learn for future things that come to the executive. I'm not going to take it quite in separate parts. I'm going to deal very briefly with the Christmas pub crawl, and like Councillor Bates, my residents that listened to the recording and looked at the papers viewed it in the same way that I did, was that this seemed to be an event that was encouraging nighttime activity at a time when we had a dispersal order in the town centre within Camberley, and in addition to that, at a time when it is naturally buoyant for the nighttime economy and they are most likely to be most busy. I just do not get any justification for that event, even following on from Councillor Garrett's comments about it this evening, to give extra colour on that. Simply cannot see it. It's not promoting any of our core values. So it's not promoting health, it's not promoting or endorsing responsible behaviour. And I am quite frankly horrified, as were the residents that responded on social media to that matter. The other thing is moving on, and actually to take the point that Mr. Watson said in one of his opening statements. He said that this is about Camberley. And I would absolutely agree with him. It is about Camberley. He did go on to correct himself and say that it was something for the whole borough. But actually, I strongly disagree with that. My residents can't access Camberley. We can't get to Camberley. There's no public transport for Camberley, and it's not somewhere that we go to. I absolutely endorse the fact that we need to do everything we can for the businesses within Camberley, but I don't accept that the events in Camberley are something that are open to all residents of the borough. And in fact, if we're looking at spending £5,000 to increase footfall over Christmas, something that other boroughs have done is to actually provide free transport. And I'm quite sure that £5,000 would go a long way to subsidising our own transport services to get the residents from the villages into Camberley Town Centre in order to spend some more money, and actually appreciate that Camberley Town Centre may in many cases be a preferable place to shop to Woking, which is what the majority of the residents in this side of the borough go. In addition to that, so that's the first point. The other thing as well is going back to the points that Councillor Bates has made on page 10. They're all very valid about how we should move forward in order to make sure that events that are going to be funded by us are funded appropriately. I would just like to add in there that I would like to see that we are getting evidence from the businesses that they actually see a benefit, with the exclusion of McDonald's and, you know, the lower end, fairly fast food retail outlets that may well benefit from people that come in to go to an event and they want to grab a burger or a meal after, a takeaway type meal afterwards. With the exclusion of those, how many other businesses, I'm winding up, Councillor McGavin, can't get my words out, sorry. So with the exclusion of those, we need to do some analysis collectively, Camberley, collect money from all of the businesses that are part of collectively Camberley. It therefore should not be on the wit of men to get the endorsement, I would suggest anonymously, from the businesses, and to actually get their response as to whether or not they feel that these proposals are a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Thanks for keeping to time. Councillor Graham Tapper, you have got 5 minutes now. And let's keep it to 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Noted. Actually, I would like to start with what I now realise should have been a declaration of interest. I have been a member of CAMRA, the Campaign for Real Ale, for over 50 years. So clearly my interest in our hospitality outlets in the town and throughout the borough is very much influenced by that. But, however, on this occasion, it may seem that I'm actually speaking against my interest because I'm actually opposing the third item, the Christmas con. I have to echo the words that have been spoken by my colleagues on the council here. Councillor Bates has very much stated that it looks like we're funding a pub crawl. And that has been stated to me by my residents, that that's how they see it as well. But, however, if you read the intention of what the money is to be proposed for, it does include things like additional entertainment, which is presumably helping pubs and similar outlets to fund live entertainment, singing groups, that sort of thing. Now, if we look at the whole proposal here, 2 of those proposals are very clearly in my mind, designed to attract people into Camberley Town Centre to engage in events which, were they not being held, would not encourage them to actually go into town to spend money. They're there for a purpose, just like the car show, for instance. It's something which does attract substantial numbers. If we didn't have the car show, they wouldn't come into town. But for goodness sake, Christmas, that is the word which is pertinent here. If people are not going to come into town to enjoy themselves at Christmas, when are they? And spending extra money on what is proposed here, I do not believe would make a scrap of difference to whether people will come in or not. If it's Christmas, they're going to come in and they're going to enjoy themselves and they're going to do their own pub crawls. Why should we pay for this? In the proposal as it was put forward originally to us, there was no evidence provided that any of these hospitality outlets had actually approached anybody to say, we need this funding in order to make Christmas a success. It was not offered as a justification, and I don't believe that it is even necessary. If these hospitality outlets can't make money at Christmas, there is no time whatsoever that they are going to be able to do it. So this is the one that I absolutely object to. And from what I've heard from the other members of this committee, it sounds as though they do so as well. The other two, I think, are a little less clear. Now, great cases has been made for saying that nothing will be justified to be paid if a full business case is not presented that would actually provide the support for the requirement. And I would expect nothing less. Anything that's handed out willy-nilly without actually going into the depths of whether it's the right amount or not is my opinion, unnecessary. So that's my proposal. I would like to object to the Comic-Con grant allocation, and I invite my colleagues on the committee to support me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tapper. Now, do we have any contributors to this debate? Do we? No? You don't have any more contributors? You don't have any contributors other than yourselves? No. Okay, thank you very much.
Chair, could you have your microphone?
Sorry, beg your pardon. I want to stick to the rules set out so that we don't actually break anything. I'm sure it will come back with final comments and questions. Of course, you'll get your chance to answer some of them. Yeah, thank you. Committee members, followed by non-committee members, will be invited to ask questions of any contributing parties in order to set out in 1 and 4 above. So I'm opening to the committee members first. Anyone? Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chair. Do we know what the 1.5% levy is of? 1.5% of what? Do we know?
The 1.5% levy is 1.5% of the business rates that are levied against the properties that are in the bid. So that's what they agreed to when they sign up to it.
Else? Sir. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, bravely, I'm going to take Councillor Wheeler to task. I see her looking at me. She mentioned it beyond the wit of man. It's also beyond the wit of women as well, or wit of people, but not just man. I just thought I'd mention that en passant. It is still just about Christmas. Interestingly enough, none of my residents have contacted me about this alleged pub crawl. You know, I obviously, I have a joining ward to Councillor Tapper, but clearly different views from residents. but nobody has been contacting me, wringing hands about this alleged pub crawl. My problem here is, why do we give more money to Collectively Camberley? That's where I start on this. And my view is that they do, I believe, a good job. I would like to see, and I know the portfolio holder knows this because I have made this point to him, I would like to see indication of increased footfall, increased income in car parking, and one would like to see increased take in the shops, but of course that is confidential information. And retailers are awfully coy, as you yourself will know, Chairman, when it comes to divulging just what their take is, as it would give unfair advantage potential to other people. So, you know, retailers are not going to say, I suppose if you want to measure, the old rule was the carrier bag or paper bag, as it is now, count. To see more people in the shops, to see people around. I mean, the monuments that we had were immensely popular. I mean, walking through the town centre to see the children and everybody looking at these in amazement. And the footfall was undoubtedly up. We've seen the figures of that. We've seen all of that. So Collectively Camberley do a good job. But yes, I think one would like to see an awful lot more information, but we're going to spend our time chasing our butts, getting information and not achieving anything if we're not careful. And yes, okay, things could be done differently, it could be done better. Of course it could. We're only human and we're here to learn and improve. But more people means more employment. And that's employment across the board. And that's employment for older people. Apparently, people over 50 are now encouraged to come back in the workforce. I'm waiting until the numbers go up a little bit more before I apply. But it's also for younger people, for part-time employment. It also creates car parking income, and it's good news to Mr. Watson. It creates more income through the NNDR, which comes into the council coffers. So we have to take a holistic view on this. So really, in summary, yeah, I'd love to see more information. I think it's right. But I do feel, I mean, Councillor Bates, looking at the reasons for Councillor Bates' calling on his summary, they're absolutely spot on. Everything there is right. That we should get the information, we should be able to do with that, and this has got to go through a due process before any money is spent. I think we started with that point from Councillor Garrett. He's saying no money is going to be sent until it is reviewed properly by the full authority. So I'm sorry, I cannot support this, and I'm sorry that my residents have not contacted me complaining about the pub crawl, for which I do apologise. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Anyone else want to contribute, even ask a question at this stage if you need to? God, that's brilliant. Councillor Whitcroft. Wheeler or Whitcroft?
Helen, Councillor Whitcroft, but
Wheeler.
and then has taken it down. Councillor Wheeler is now.
Okay, Councillor Wheeler then.
Thank you. I just actually wanted to ask a question of one of my fellow committee members, and that is, did he let his residents know? Because if I look at just one half of the villages that I represent, on one post alone, there were 71 reactions to the proposals. So if we don't let our residents know, they're not normally empowered to comment on it.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Any questions? We can comment on all the questions and answers in a minute, but no other question? Okay, I just want to say something myself on this. I believe that the Camberley Town Centre need a boost. I strongly believe that. The COVID has actually affected the trading. What I object to is the fact that the paper was put forward without a proper business case, without justification, that this has to be sort of compared to something else. BID gets the money from us, and I support that. It's going forward, and to be honest, I was actually there on the night, and it was heaving, and we were going to one of the restaurants, Wagamama, couldn't get a seat in. and this is about 5:36 in the afternoon. They really were truly packed. It was very well attended. Now, what we need to understand is how did that turnout from the residents convert into pounds into the shops, and whether the bid could have done it without this additional funding. If they needed it, did they give us additional evidence for it? That is my main point. But I must stress, I'm absolutely all for promoting the town centre any which way, because the retail coming 2 years or 3 years is going to be very, very difficult. And we need to compete with the likes of Bracknell, Guildford, and Wokingham. All these are close town centres which are thriving, or compared to us. With that, I want to leave that point there. Calling in councillors will make any concluding comments. Councillor Bates, you started it. Off to you, sir.
Okay, we haven't really had much of a debate, I don't think, but there's 2 points I think I probably just want to pick up on that have been said since I last contributed, and that was regarding the income or the benefits to the council of potential car parking and also to the businesses. I think Councillor Hawkins, in fact, made the point for me, really, that if I was to see a case and we're spending £30,000 on this beach party, for example, and we were then going to get £50,000-60,000 of additional car parking income or additional benefit to the council in some way, then clearly that is a successfully costed business case that we can then come and say, yes, this is what we've agreed, and that is fine, and we've agreed that as councillors. But what I do object to is that it is councillors who need to decide the business case. We are the ones spending the money, and I don't believe in delegating that to officers. Officers are the ones who would implement a business plan in conjunction with others, but I don't believe it's right that we, in essence, agree the money and then say, oh, but we're not going to agree the parameters of it. We'll leave that down to you. I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's how we should be doing it. Where I think we could and we've mentioned about the sensitivity of shops, and I do understand they may not be willing, for understandable reasons, to give their actual monies and turnover. They may be willing to give the percentage increase, whether it's gone up or down. It is true that, as we've talked about, fast food places went up during some of the days that we're talking about, and that's fine. Some other places may have gone down for reasons of whatever that might be. So we can't just guarantee that everywhere went up or down. We need to take it as a whole and to look at that as a whole and understand it as a whole. And I think that's where I come at this with disappointment, I suppose, that we didn't have that for the initial meeting. We've heard and there's been admitted that there was information which, in the benefit of hindsight, may have been put better, and that's fine, and that's the only point for the future. But we've got, what I would propose is that we do ask the executive to reconsider this. It may give time for a business case to be costed before the executive, which they may then agree. And if they do, then fair enough. But that's what my plea is, actually. I think colleagues are suggesting we do need the executive to reconsider. If they reconsider and reject what we're saying, then fine, that is their decision. But I think there's enough of us who are upset by this that this is something we just can't let rest. I did contact Councillor Garrett to inform him, as he knows, that would be calling this in. I haven't heard anything at the moment which changes my mind, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bates. Councillor Wheeler?
Most unusual for me not to be able to get myself off mute. I do apologise. I don't really have anything else to add other than the fact that I would like to put forward a formal proposal that we go back to the executive to ask them to look for a fully costed business case for each event that is planned by Collectively Cambly, and for it to come back to the executive or perhaps the Cambly Town Centre Working Group for approval prior to agreeing to any funding being allocated.
Thank you very much. Very, very sensible suggestion. So was Councillor Bates. Councillor Tapper.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would support Councillor Wheeler's proposal here with one exception. I would like to propose that the item with regard to the Christmas con be accepted as dropped completely, eliminated from all consideration, and that we go forward only with consideration of the other two events that are proposed here. And I think that would justify us having another look at this and seeing whether a better proposal can be brought forward that might make this more acceptable. But I'm sorry, I can find no justification for Christmas con whatsoever. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Tapper. Now, the three councillors have commented. Moving on to point 7, which is lead councillor representing the decision will make the final comments and will indicate if they are minded to agree with the action sought by the call-in councillors. Councillor Garrett. Of course you can, absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. These are in no particular order either. I randomly wrote notes down as you were talking, and I want to pick up on some of the points. The conversation referenced restaurants, for instance, was not McDonald's. It was an independent, and it was Mullins, and I checked with him. He was happy to mention it, and he said, yes, I'm more than happy, because I thought the event was a massive success, and my turnover greatly increased on that day. So it wasn't specifically McDonald's, although McDonald's, I know for a fact, have also had that. So that's one. I can get for you from the bid. They do, after events, do feedbacks, and I have some here for some previous events, and I have a list of other businesses that have given their feedback on what the bid does and the events they do. Again, I wasn't going to go through all that with it, but I could happily pass this on to you in a document or after this meeting. So hopefully that covers off. It doesn't necessarily cover it off, but just the figures are available. I was hoping for some footfall figures for today for the specific days of events, which I was unable to get. But picking up on something Councillor Hawkins said, the problem with turnover figures, I've asked for this, when I took over portfolio, it was for me, it's like, oh well, if we can do footfall figures, but as I said in my my speech, I can't guarantee people are spending money although they're coming into town. Unfortunately, none of these very, very few businesses are going to give turnover figures because it is commercially sensitive. They don't want their competitors knowing what they got. So that is always going to be a very, very difficult thing to do. As far as the events go, these events weren't made up by the council and the officers. These events came from the bid that we have all said we have full trust in and have done successful events in the past. These are not events we came up with. They actually listed 7 more on top of the 4 the ones they already do, of which we picked out the ones that they highlighted they thought were going to be the most successful. It was them that suggested the Christmas con, based on the fact that having spoken to other bids locally who have done similar events, they were very successful. This wasn't something we pulled out of mid-air, okay? So, again, this is their idea of events that they think would help bringing more business into our town, because that is what their role is. I totally take on board all the comments that you've said reference that, but I'm just sort of feeding back to you that this wasn't our idea, this is what's come back from them. Reference the oversized models. I obviously still didn't make it clear in my my speech. The reindeers and the bunnies that we've used previously are the sort of sizes of animals we're talking about. We're not talking about inflatable gorillas, as I said. We are talking about similar size to the bunnies that have previously been in town, and the reindeers, which others have already said have been successful. So the idea, once you buy them, they are then yours. Unfortunately, as they are sitting in, although they are sitting in the front of stores, they do get knocked. I can't remember what the material is. Although they are quite strong and sturdy, they do start looking tired. So hence the reason that the idea was to get some others to do for other events. I won't go into the capital because it sounds like, as far as the capital side of things goes, we seem to be happy with that. What I will do is we'll go back to the rest of the executive. I will take on board what the comments are. It's clear you want for the executive to have full business cases. I don't know how quickly we're going to be able to get that sort of information together, and what sort of information you would like to see in this business case. Are we looking at car parking, for instance, which I know we can get car parking figures for the days the other events are done. We're never going to get turnover figures. That's one thing I can't ever get to you. I cannot tell you. So based on the fact that we know events previously have increased footfall, I can give you that. I know we can increase parking figures. I can give you that. But what other information do you actually want? Because you're not going to get turnover figures. I can't come and sit here, and it doesn't matter how many executive meetings I have, I can't say to you, if we have an event, we're going to increase the turnover figure by X percent, okay? So I understand you want a fully business cases, and we obviously would get information from the bid, but what else can I give you? So I need some clarity on what you want me to be able to give to you that makes you feel that it's you're getting more information. And I think that covered, yeah, I think I've covered off most of the points that were coming up while I was writing them down. If there's anything else, I'm happy to pick up on it.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Garrett. Now let's move on to section point 8 on page 3, which is actually to look at the proposal and alternative options, which I think we should look at it, but at the same time, Councillor Wheeler actually suggested that you had said that BID requested this.
Yep.
So BID must have some financial information of some evidence to say there will be an increase in footfall, revenue, whatever it is. They should have it. They just can't say, oh, we'll do this and you guys do this and you take the gamble and we are not going to. So as a businessman, no, not anymore, but in the past, without that evidence, I won't actually agree to anything. I know you're going to answer that, but so I would strongly suggest to go back to BID, get the information. When they suggested these points, what evidence did they have, okay, at that point, and what evidence they have now to show how successful it has been. Ideally, you should compare that to previous events within Camberley Town Centre. I would not even attempt to look at other town centres because other town centres are very unique by themselves. It will only give us a false sense of either security or insecurity. Yeah, I would be very, very careful. Councillor Hawkins, give me a minute, please. So I would be very careful.
Chairman, I just wanted to make a point of order, if I may, if you will allow me. You just said not to compare with other town centres, but earlier on you said
yes,
that the Camberley is suffering in connection with, and you listed a number, including Wokingham, Woking, Bracknell. So, you know, sometimes in these meetings, I feel I live in a parallel universe. But can you just clarify your statement on that one, please?
Sure. At that point, when I said that, it's actually comparing retail units. Yeah. Here, the Camberley is unique by itself because we have been lower than others. So go and compare that to Wokingham, which is actually running away, or Bracknell, which is running away, and then say that's a starting point. That's wrong. We have to look at our starting point, which should have been prior to COVID and the Christmas prior to COVID, and then say this is what BID wants to do. So we need to be very careful when we compare. We have to compare like with like, yes, apples with apples, and don't try and compare apples and oranges and pears and everything else. It will only confuse your decision. Thank you.
Again, I'm going to ask the question again, and maybe I'm being dim, but what do we, okay, the BID have been running events in the town for a number of years which have been successful, and the way you can tell that it's success mainly is by the amount of people that come into town and the event, what the businesses say about it afterwards, etc. We asked them to give us some more events. They've come back to some more events which they've listed as being ones they believe will bring more footfall into town. What other information do we want from them to tell us? So they've looked at other towns and seen what other events have been done in other towns and what events we've run in the town here. We run a beach event before, and apparently it was quite successful, which is why they've suggested it again. How was it successful? The only way you can tell it was successful was the amount of people that came into town. We can obviously look at if I can go back that far, which I probably can't actually, we can look at recent events and look at car parking. I can do that. That's not a problem. We can look at footfall. I can do that. That's not a problem. But what else are we wanting them to give us? I'm asking because I want to know what you want from me to come to you to tell you what you want.
I'll pass it on to Councillor Black, who had his hand first.
Yeah, I think we've made some progress. I think Councillor Weir asked that the fully costed business case could go to the executive. I think Councillor Garrett is suggesting that that might be acceptable. I think the moot point is, and I don't think it's the fully costed part of the business case that would be the trick, it's the fully benefited part of the business case. These sorts of business cases are very tricky to quantify the benefits. However, the decision of the executive already says that the authority will be dedicated to the blah, 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 subject to provision of a costed business case. So I think what we're asking is that business case is also benefited, because the business case needs to have two parts to it. And I think it would be, to answer your question, it would be whatever you can create. And it is quite nebulous, these sorts of business cases, in terms of the benefit side. It's hard to pin down in terms of hard dollars.
Thank you for that, Councillor Black. Councillor Bates.
Thank you. My observation was quite similar to Councillor Black in the sense that the original decision did make clear, subject to the provision of a costed business case. So clearly there must have been a view at that time by the executive as to what would be in that costed business case, or officers would have an understanding, and made it very clear tonight they wouldn't agree if it had been there. So I'm slightly surprised we're now being asked for what should be in the business case. So
let me clarify that. I can get you a business case. For instance, let's use the life-size models as an example. It's going to cost X amount of money for these, the signage, etc. I can give you that, okay? That bit we can do, not a problem. And if you're happy with that, along lines of we think it's going to increase footfall by X%, and we think it potentially will increase car parking by X% because we can do those two things based on previous events. That is all I can give you. I can't give you any other guarantees, as you quite rightly suggested. Now, if that's what you want and are happy with, then that is not a problem.
I go, sorry, can I? You want to say something?
Because I've had my say, so it's more questions, just to clarify, if that's all right. For me, yes, the information you've outlined, I think, would be helpful because it wasn't presented. So if we're outlining what the benefit would be to the council in terms of prospective additional income, then the cost isn't then 30,000. The cost is, 20 or 15, or may even be credit. I don't know. So that would certainly be a help. Or any other additional financial benefits that the council would gain, which may be, for example, use of, units or whatever. But we also, Councillor Black's absolutely right, we also need to have the costs. So the additional costs that may be incurred through, it probably wouldn't be littering because that would be covered by our current contract, but should there be additional need, then that needs to be in there as well. My question, I suppose, was that there wasn't anything. Now that was my objection. If it could be that these 30,000 in fact benefits us and we would get 60,000, then that's great. And I might be a bit against it, but I can see the value. At the moment, I don't have anything. And that's my...
Sorry, let me actually get Councillor Wheeler in, then you can possibly answer two of them together. Councillor Wheeler.
Thank you. I think the other thing that needs to come in is the businesses who pay us rent within Camberley Town Centre and their support of the project. So their view of it. It's not difficult to do a Microsoft form or a survey through any other means in order to get that information. So the proposal, and most importantly to the businesses that pay us rent within the Camberley Town Centre, are they supportive of it, and what percentage of them are supportive of it? It is important that we don't go ahead with these schemes on anecdotal evidence. So we can base our evidence, it can be evidence based on previous schemes. And in addition to that, it would be how the businesses actually view it. So we are not collectively Camberley, who are, as we've all said, doing a really good job, but actually a direct response from the businesses that pay rent, I think, would help to inform that with the other business, the normal things you expect to find in a business case.
Thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Councillor White.
It's a question to Councillor Garrett and Nick Stevens. With what Councillor Wheeler's just said there, what percentage of our rent payers are actually part of the bid and pay their fees to the bid? Is it every business that is in Camberley, or is it just certain businesses? Do certain businesses not pay into this? So the question that Councillor Wheeler's asked is, are our rent payers agreeable with this? But of our rent payers, how many are part of the bid?
Yeah, please do.
I was listening. I was just trying to get some information up, which was picking up on Councillor Wheeler's question as well. The bid area is a red square around the town. It's basically around the town area. Okay, there is a map, and I haven't got it to hand. I know we had it. I might have been in the papers, but it's basically the town area. Okay, and 93% of those businesses voted for the bid. Okay, so those 93% of those businesses support the bid. They've already given that support. So, and we can certainly get the bid to give a questionnaire to their businesses. As I said to you, they do it on a regular basis, and we can do it again. But by virtue of the fact that 96% of them are happy to support the bid, they're giving the bid the go-ahead to do what they believe to be correct based on what they've done previously. And use the Christmas lights as an example. They've been doing that for years. We don't get an annual costed business case for that. We don't, because that's been going on for a number of years. So we haven't asked, and I don't know, I wasn't here, I don't know if we asked for them to do that in the first place. But they don't do it every year for the car show. They don't do it every year for the Christmas lights, because they've been ones they've done and they've proved successful. But that's not to take away from the fact, I understand what you're asking. We can certainly get them to ask the businesses that have already given them their full support what they feel about the events, that extra events we're suggesting. We can also get full business cases through with the costs of the equipment they need to purchase, obviously they got a security and all those sort of things they have to do. We can certainly do that. That's not a problem. I just want to and I think it's clear. I just need to make it clear that we obviously it's going to be very difficult to give you hard facts to say this is going to increase turnover in the town by X percent, because that's an unknown. And I suppose the only way you'll know if it's not successful is if people don't come into town and footfall figures don't go up. We've got average footfall figures, we've got monthly footfall figures. Unfortunately, for the daily figures, I couldn't get them for the events in time for this meeting, which I was pushing for, and I just couldn't get them. So I can certainly do all of that, and we can do the parking as well. So I think I can probably get you all of that with no problem at all. And I can also, with reference to Councillor Wheeler's point, we can ask them to send out a questionnaire to the businesses, reference them supporting similar events. So I think I'm hoping that's covered off those points that have been brought up and want to go back to the executive with.
Thank you for that, Councillor Garrett. I think we need to get to the last part, which is actually on page 6 and Councillor Hawkins, rather.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think Councillor Garrett is getting where I think we were all coming from. Yes, some ideas put by the bid, they were based on what has been tried elsewhere, and part of that business plan would say to us how successful that has been, using certain measures. I mean, we need to get some continuity on these measures, because otherwise we could go around in an ever-decreasing circle, which is beginning to feel like we are already on. But it's the car parking, it's the footfall, it's the satisfaction of it. As far as going back to the tenants, our tenants, I mean, let's be honest, Surrey Heath Borough Council is the largest member of the bid by a long measure. And something like 65% of the cost or income of it. I mean, we've only just renewed the licence and the agreement with the bid in the last 6 months, I think it is, somewhere. Yeah. So if we went back to our tenants and ask them. It's rather akin to this council not making a decision until we went back and asked every resident what they do. The bid is there to represent the retailers in the town centre. They're the ones charged with that, the same way as we're charged to represent the views of our residents. So, but I think so we just got to have a certain sense of focus on this one, and therefore we look at the events that have been held, we have that historical information, we know the cost of those, ballpark, we know what the footfall was, we know what the car parking, if there was an increase. And Councillor Carrott's quite right. If there is no increase, if there's been a fall over a period, why was there a fall? What was the weather? What was going on? Was there a football match or whatever? You know, there are extraneous circumstances, and then we take a decision on that based on the information that we have charged the bid to do. So, you know, yeah, it's absolutely right, and I think that we've now on a place. So, the motion put by Councillor Wheeler that we should ask the executive to reconsider with a business plan, and we've set the parameters of that business plan as much as we are able to design in that this evening, and we should crack on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Noble.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the original call-in request, Councillor Bates suggested that the decision be scrutinised on the authority to delegate to the Strategic Director of Environment and Community in consultation with the Economic Development and Transformation Portfolio holder. Can I have Councillor Garrett's assurance that this matter will go to executive and not be delegated? So can we propose that this authority is not delegated and that part of the decision is waived, removed, withdrawn?
Garrett.
Sorry, the only point I need to clarify on that is how much money generally has to come to executive. Is there an upper? Are we saying £5,000 has to come to the executive, or are we saying 20,000? And I don't know the figures on that.
To be honest, I don't know.
I'm sure Councillor Bates might know.
Councillor Bates definitely will know.
Sorry, just on the procedural question. If we as a committee, which I think from the conversation is that we're going to ask the executive to reconsider, that would then go to your next executive meeting with the views of this committee, which you've, I think, noted down. You will then have the decision as the executive as to what to do about that. Hopefully you'll take on board and agree. You don't have to. That would be for your executive to decide. So it's not about setting a parameter regarding future 5,000, 10,000, etc., although there's comments around that. But it is ultimately an executive decision. We can only scrutinise and make our points known, as we have, I think, done. So it's that's where we're at, I think. Unfortunately, we can't overturn the executive, much as I have historically wanted to on many occasions.
I agree with Councillor Bates on that point. Councillor Garrett, you want to say something?
No, we've got a proposal, Chairman, that needs to have a seconder and then a vote on it.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. There's a proposal that whatever it's come up to, I don't know, so you're better at wording proposals, Councillor Bates.
I think Councillor Wheeler's proposal was to refer back to the executive for a robust business plan.
Which point is that, Councillor?
May I come in? So that essentially our proposal is that this motion is deferred until the presentation of a detailed business plan, which incorporates the likely increase in revenue from car parking, a support document for this particular type of activity from the businesses that pay rent within the town centre, and that we are engaging with partnership organisations such as the police to ensure that they are also supportive of any event that is likely to bring in large numbers of people to Camberley Town Centre. I think that pretty much covers everything. I'm sure Councillor Bates will come in if I've missed something.
I think Councillor Tapper wants to say something. I'd rather try and keep it within, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I did propose an amendment to that proposal, which was that in any event, the proposal to make a grant in respect of Christmas Con be dropped, irrespective of the others. I had proposed that. I don't know if I have a seconder for that. Thank you.
Anyone seconding Graham Tapper's amendment first? The Councillor Noble, you are seconding it. Sorry, let's take a vote on it.
Okay, can I just, as a point of order,
Please
clarify
do.
that?
You're the expert at point
it's
of order.
A bit technical. So, just again, my understanding is we can't overturn that decision that's been made. So ultimately, the executive have heard the concerns regarding all of the events, but particularly the one that Councillor Tapper has mentioned. I suppose I'm therefore questioning whether this is an appropriate amendment. So I'm not judging the content of it, because I think there's a lot of agreement on it, but just if it's going to go back in its entirety, then in essence that's for the executive to decide. Is that not? Unless we're not saying.
No, you're right. Please do.
I think I've read the room, okay? I've seriously read the room, and I certainly understand exactly where the room and those on cam are coming from. So certainly I'm happy that if you want to put the motion through without the motion from Councillor Tapper as a whole, the whole situation will be reviewed in its entirety, and I take on board the feeling that, and I'm happy for you to minute that is not well received.
Chairman.
Councillor Tapper, would you agree to that? Because the whole thing needs to be sent instead of taking parts of it away.
I fully understand that, and my proposal was only to take it forward as a recommendation from this committee. It was never, we can't obviously delete Christmas Con, but what we're saying is we don't want to see that in what eventually comes back to us, and I'm asking for that to be taken on board and taken with, I mean, a proposal and a seconder here, and everything that's been said tonight seems to support that at that point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Councillor Tapper.
Chairman, can I just make a point of order or a suggestion? Where Councillor Wheeler said likely car parking, I think we can only go for potential because we can't do likely. There's a subtle difference in terminology. Thank you.
While we've been sitting here, we are organising for the parking figures for the last 2 years' worth of events, so we can look at those and see how they compare to same days of average figures. So we're looking at those figures so we can bring those, because you're right, I can't tell you they're going to be increased by a certain amount, but I can certainly look at previous events and tell you what the increase is on a weekly basis. So we're already doing that, so I will bring that within the paper as well.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's good because the whole thing is coming back to exec. So at the exec, when you present the full business case, you can provide the evidence based on factual rather than, and also I would suggest that you do speak to BID to see if they have identified this, how did they arrive at? That's for the exec to now look at it again. Yeah. Are we all agreed on this? Yes. Agreed? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. I think we are concluded. Oh, have I missed out anything else? Excellent. Thank you. See you again on the 25th. Good night.